Hi, I'm John Ray, and welcome to the Thriving Podcast. I'm your host and intuitive coach, dedicated to amplifying your intuition, transforming your mind, and igniting your inner magic to create a life you're obsessed with. 2 years ago, I was burnt out as fuck in a toxic relationship and a successful tech career that I just wasn't happy in anymore. I left it all behind with no plan, and now I'm running my own business, immersed in purpose and passion, happily married to my soulmate, and living out my dreams every single day. And if you're badass enough to be listening to this podcast, then you're already on the fast track to doing the same, babe. On this podcast, we'll dive into all things life, business, heart, mind, body, and soul, empowering you to up-level your life and embody your happiest, healthiest, and hottest self. It's time to make idealistic your new realistic, because you're not just here to survive, you're here to thrive. Hello, 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 you beautiful magical souls. Welcome back to the podcast. I am being so good today, you guys. I am recording ahead of time. By ahead of time, I mean not the day before the episode is coming out. But I kind of have to because I'm not going to be home next Wednesday. But regardless, it's Saturday right now. So it's not even Tuesday. So go me, celebrating that win. I am really excited for today's episode because I had a random ping the other day. And I was like, I want to talk about manifestation more. Specifically, I kind of talk about manifestation all the time. But, just because manifestation is literally just the way of life and the way the world works. So it's everything I talk about's related to manifestation in, whether it's directly or indirectly. But I wanted to just talk about, specifically manifestation and just breaking it down. And it was funny because I had this ping and I was like, yeah, but I don't want to do, I don't know, because I feel like I don't want to do a boring manifestation episode, I don't want to just be this is what manifestation is, or I don't know, manifestation myths. I could do that, but I feel like it's all been done before, and it just felt like I want to be fun and fresh, So I thought it would be fun and way more exciting to ask you guys questions, what questions do you have related to manifestation, and just do it in kind of a Q&A form, or at least use your questions as a guide for me to talk about it. So that way I'm ensuring that this is directly relevant to, the questions that you do have and what you're actually wondering about manifestation, if that makes sense. And it just makes it a little more interesting and interactive. And I also just love answering questions. Yeah, in a way, it was a way for me to be a little lazy and be no, I don't have to decide what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna let you decide. But anyway, I'm really excited. I got some great questions that I think are gonna really allow us to cover a lot of the most important core pillars of manifestation. So I'm really excited. I feel like that's a habit I want to break, is just saying I'm really excited about everything. Because I feel like that's such a classic influencer or podcaster or social media personality thing, is prefacing by just saying how excited you are 17 times. And it's you clearly can tell I'm excited. Why do I have to keep saying it? I feel like it's just another kind of filler that I just insert while I'm figuring out what I'm going to say. So I feel a lot of the time my mouth works faster than my brain, which I need to I feel I could benefit if I just slowed down the pace of my talking in general. But that's why I feel that's why I put in so many filler words, is because I need more time to think so that my brain can catch up to my mouth, if that makes sense. Anyway, it was also really funny because then my coach, she did intuitive business readings for all of us, and she just sent me mine yesterday. And it was literally right after I had just posted that story asking for questions earlier that day and had that ping. And one of the things she said in my reading was, she was I got manifestation, just big, flashing sign manifestation. She was I don't know what that is. I know that you kind of started with talking a lot about manifestation, and you still do, but I don't know if that's exactly what you focus on. She's I don't really know, but it was just coming through really big. And I was are you kidding me? I just had this download. So I don't know, maybe we want to start talking about manifestation more specifically. And the funny thing is, when I posted that story, I was manifestation has always been my zone of genius, literally breaking it down and just simplifying. I feel I am the manifestation expert. Truly, not to toot my own horn, but I'm tooting my own horn. Ask me any question about manifestation, I'll answer it. I just have zero questions when it comes to manifestation because I feel I understand the concept that well. So anyway, that said, this is going to be a little kind of introduction to manifestation. The questions, like I said, they were very, I'm like, should I just tell you all the questions now or should I just like go in order? But I think I'm just going to go in order. And yeah, whatever. I'll have a description in the show notes of whatever we're going to talk about. All right, so let's just jump right into it. The first question I wanted to answer, I thought would be a great starting point because it was, wait, I have to pull the questions up. LOL. Where do the science and spirit of manifestation meet, in your opinion? So I thought that was a great question to start with because it kind of is like a perfect way to kind of lay the groundwork and like, debunk some myths and really kind of like explain what manifestation is, and through a cool lens. Because again, I don't want to just get on here and be like, define manifestation because I feel like that's boring. But I feel like still a lot of people really just don't get what it truly is and what it means. And I also feel like I've always kind of had this theme to like my life and like who I am of kind of like bridging this gap between extremes. Well, kind of like bouncing between extremes, but also being really good at like bridging the gap and like seeing both sides of things and like being very open-minded. And I think I take an interesting approach to spirituality because in some ways I'm very grounded and very logic-based and I have a very analytical mind and I'm really good at breaking things down and being really like practical with it. And at the same time, I'm like super woo and like I'm literally doing magic and like completely fuck the logic. So this will be a fun conversation. So where do the science and spirit meet? This is a big thing is manifestation, the word, right? It's known as a very spiritual concept, but it's actually also a very scientific concept. And I think a lot of people write it off, manifestation is woo-woo, but it's not based in science. Anybody who says that, in my opinion, anybody who says that actually just doesn't understand what manifestation is. Okay. Anyone, I actually watched an entire YouTube video one time and I like shouldn't have because it really triggered me because I was just annoyed because she was basically saying like why she doesn't believe in manifestation and why she's against manifestation. But everything she was talking about was in support of manifestation. She just basically she didn't understand that what she was describing was manifestation. And so she was like, why do we like say manifestation when it's not it? And I was like, girl, it is it. Like, you just don't get what it is. So I think that anybody who disagrees that manifestation is almost equally as science-based as spirituality-based. I know that sounds like a stretch. I'm not saying that necessarily every single specific belief is, proven. I think many of them are. And I think, a lot of people just don't really understand. Like, there's a lot of people who still really think that when you say manifest, it's like that idea of like, sit in your room and visualize and like all of a sudden you'll just have $10,000 pop up in your bank account, which like obviously that's not what it is. So yeah, like people's specific beliefs can differ, but to me, it's all just means to the same end. And I'm going to really kind of dive into, that more. But yeah, I think anyone who is just kind of like, manifestation is just this like woo made up bullshit, like, like they don't actually understand the concepts and they're probably actually practicing or do believe in a lot of the concepts and values without even realizing. And again, it's just like semantics. And honestly, it's like if that's working for them, like, sure, like you don't have to look at it through a spiritual lens if that doesn't resonate with you. And yeah, that kind of brings me to like really my biggest point of view with this is, where do the science and spirit meet in manifestation is I actually have a theory that every manifestation concept or principle or rule or whatever it is can be explained from a spiritual perspective in a spiritual context or in a scientific context. Damn, that would have been really good to clip. And I fumbled my words. But yeah, I really think you can explain, like I could just as easily brand myself as, from not a spiritual lens, right? And I could just talk about like mindset and psychology and neuroscience and literally talk about all the same concepts and just frame them differently and use different words to describe them. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into what I mean here. So on a base level, manifestation it's literally just, technically it's kind of a weird word because it describes like a belief system, but it also and it describes like a process, but it also is just describing like the thing, right? Like a manifestation is like an appearance of something. It's like a creation, right? Something. So it's like when you manifest, like you're creating manifestations, if that makes sense. So the word kind of has like multiple meanings, and so that's why I don't get too hung up on the semantics. But essentially, like what this belief system is just that your actions and beliefs create your reality. And when I say create your reality, it's essentially saying like your beliefs will manifest in your physical experience, in your lived experience, in your reality, because your lived experience, your conscious experience is your reality. So your energy will manifest. That's all it really is at the core. Your actions and beliefs create your reality. And, that's one of the biggest misconceptions about manifestation too, is like that has nothing to do with action. I feel like if you're in this space, if you're in the spiritual growth, personal development world, you're pretty familiar by now. You've had that myth debunked many times, right? You understand that manifestation is not just about thinking positive, and it absolutely involves action, is absolutely a huge part of it. So, I think that's a big missing piece is, again, in that definition, I didn't say that your beliefs just create your reality. It's your actions and beliefs, right? It's basically saying you are a co-creator of your reality, right? You have the power to shape your reality. And, when people say manifest it, manifest that shit, essentially is what it's saying is just like make it happen, right? Like it's just this idea that you can make it happen. And it also really comes back to this concept of perception is reality, right? You will perceive every experience in whatever way that you perceive it. You perceive through your senses, and then you apply meaning to the experience, and that's the reality of your experience, right? It's whatever you're experiencing in your conscious mind. It's like everything is just objective experience, but then you interpret it and perceive it, and that's your reality, right? Does that make sense? And you will always perceive your reality in a way that aligns with your subconscious beliefs. And that's because your subconscious mind controls 95% of your behavior and is also driven by survival instincts. I said this a couple episodes ago, but your subconscious mind and your survival brain hates change. It hates unfamiliar. It hates unknown. It's constantly trying to filter everything through the lens of known and familiar because it associates that with safety. That's the easiest way to stay safe. Unknown is danger and ultimately death, and it wants to keep you alive. So your mind is always thinking, stick to what I know. Also, it always wants the easiest route. We talked about this before because that's less energy required, more energy you can save for survival. Why waste your energy when there might be a predator that you need to have energy to run away from? So basically what I'm trying to say is once a belief is formed in your subconscious mind, it's going to take a lot of work to change that belief because your brain is like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Your brain is like, well, it's been keeping us alive this far, so like works for me, right? Like basically it's serving your brain's best interest to just perceive things in a way that aligns with those beliefs that you've already cemented. These beliefs are already built in, these neural pathways are already firing. And it's not, I'm talking like it's like this conscious thing of the brain. It's just how it's designed to function, like it's trying to like figure out how the world works so it can help you move through the world in a way that's going to keep you safe and alive. It's not like it's out to hurt you or it's trying to do something bad. It's just like, this is the way I've come to understand the world. And these are the beliefs that I've had to create to make sense of my experiences to keep myself safe in the best way I know how. So it's not going to change the belief that it's perceiving things through the lens of unless you have an experience that makes your brain think that that belief is no longer the truth or the belief that's going to keep you safe. This part of your brain is not thinking about expansion and growth, right? It's thinking about stay alive. So that is kind of actually like exactly where the science meets the spirit with manifestation, because it's this part of your brain, the scientific aspect of this is literally the reality you're experiencing, and this is how your brain works and why it works this way. from a biological perspective. And where it meets the spirit is your soul, your consciousness, like the other part of you that wants more, that has bigger desires, that wants to grow and expand. Your soul and your intuition, that's also a part of your experience. So that's literally where they meet, is your higher self, your soul, that the other part of you, the true you, your true self, is basically trying to drive this ship that is powered by your subconscious brain. So that's kind of this constant, like battle and challenge and journey that we're on, is almost like our higher self and biology are in this kind of conflict, but that's like where our growth comes from. And so this constant journey of integration and embodiment and choice, right? Like embracing our power of choice and embracing our power in general and pulling in more of our divine power and following your intuition when it does contradict your biology, or your biology is really fighting you hard. That's really where they meet. And that's kind of like what makes this whole journey, right? Like if we didn't have that more, the science, like we didn't have the biology. And by biology, I really mean just like that, like our analytical mind, like our logical mind, like that operates out of fear and like looking for negativity, right? Like directly contradicting our true essence of our higher self, that is love and abundance and, trust and belief. There would be no manifestation piece at all, right? Like the science is the physical part of it. That's the way I look at it, at least. And I feel like I'm not even, like, this is just life, right? It's just like, that's why I'm so passionate about manifestation, because manifestation literally is just like the way I look at it, at least, it's just the way that the world works. Like, it's just the journey of life and personal growth. And that's another thing about manifestation, is like you're manifesting 24/7. That's why I keep saying it's just the way it works. Like you're manifesting your entire reality and lived experience. Manifesting, of course, is not just positive things. It's not just like, we talk about it in a way that is really referring to intentional manifesting, right? Like you have a conscious desire you want to manifest, but you are intentionally or unintentionally manifesting everything in your reality 24/7. So basically, when we talk about intentional manifesting, it's just that idea again of like taking your life into your own hands, right? And like taking responsibility for the reality you are experiencing. And that's really the personal growth journey. So it's kind of like this thing of they meet in this way that makes manifestation even a thing. It's basically like this process of manifestation is essentially just this vehicle and driver of our growth in a way. Learning to listen to your intuition, to connect to your higher self, embody your higher self, tune into what your higher self, like what your soul actually even desires, and then working with all of these tools and doing everything that you can to basically expand, right? And try to get your physical body and biological brain on board. So it's really like this process of remembering your true nature despite these physical limits and challenges and doubts. And yeah, really just that integration and embodiment. I mean, your intuition speaks through your body. So I'm describing it as like these two separate things, but at the same time, right? It's like, again, pulling that in and like really syncing it up. That's why I'm always talking about mind-body connection, especially like your nervous system. Your nervous system is a huge part, like, and your intuition speaks through your body. And I almost feel like it's like your intuition really speaks through your nervous system in a way. So like when we talk about a full body yes, it's like when your nervous system is on board, when you have the capacity in your nervous system for that thing, that's why it feels expansive or contracting. That's kind of like how your body is communicating to you, like if this is in alignment for you at this point in time. So it's like learning how to actually, tune into those cues and messages in your body and really like refine your channel. So I feel like I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, and we're not going to go into all the ways that like intuition speaks to you, but it's all related. And it's just kind of like, yeah, there's so many ways that all these moving parts work together. And I really like the way that question was phrased, like, where do they meet? Because it is kind of like, yeah, like how do they work together? Like this process of integration, and how do they both play a role in manifestation? The other piece I wanted to say is like there's the whole quantum physics element, and like everything is energy. Like energetics is a huge piece of this. So from a scientific perspective, everything is energy, and a lot of manifestation principles are based on this concept. Now, quantum physics, I'm not a quantum physics expert, okay? But I want to be. I'm like such a nerd for it. And it's obviously very relevant to this conversation. And quantum physics also really supports this concept and this perspective of, perception is reality, and reality, it's not fixed objective, right? It's subjective. It's influenced by the observer. There are like the observer effect is like particles change the way that they behave based on like if they're being observed or not. So that's kind of like that where attention goes, energy flows kind of thing. Also, hello, I didn't even mention the reticular activating system when I was talking about the brain and how it filters everything and how you perceive everything, right? The reticular activating system is the bundle of nerves at your brainstem that literally it filters out the unnecessary information to make sure the important stuff gets through, right? And so you literally tell your reticular activating system what is important and what isn't, right? It's like that thing where it's like you tell someone, find 5 blue things in the room, right? And you spend all this time looking for 5 blue things, and then it's like, close your eyes. And then you say, okay, name 1 brown thing in the room, right? And you can't, because you just told your reticular activating system only blue is important right now. So that's like this whole other piece of this. Literally, you tell your brain what to pay attention to and what to perceive. So it's like if you tell your brain to look for proof of abundance, you're going to see proof of abundance, right? It's like NLP and all that. Your brain is literally always listening. So it's like whatever you tell it to focus on, that's why like affirmations are powerful, and what you consume is so powerful because, yeah, your brain is always listening and looking for clues of like, okay, what is important? What should I pay attention to? And again, like that will affect your beliefs, and it will affect, like, again, the lens through which you filter all information that you are perceiving and consuming. So anyway, I can't believe I forgot to mention that. But yeah, and we're basically where attention goes, energy flows, right? And we have all kinds of support for this. And like it's literally been studied with experiments. Back to quantum physics, like the double slit experiments. I'm like not gonna be able to explain them well, so like go research the double slit experiments. It's super fascinating, but it's basically this idea of like light will behave as a wave, and it can travel multiple paths if it's not being observed, but then if you observe it, like it behaves as a particle that travels one path. And it's this idea of, like the particles exist in a state of superposition, I think it's called, which is basically like they exist in multiple states at once. And it's only once they are observed that they collapse into a single state. That's my very limited understanding. But it's essentially this idea of like, all this energy is just out there, and it's not like, committed to a reality until you observe it. Like, so to me, that just supports the idea of like anything is possible, right? Like we're not limited to any like way, like any certain way that things like have to go. It's like nothing is already set in motion. Like you making the choice, you taking the action can literally affect the reality of your experience. And that's kind of like the, underlying support for how I look at like timelines. Like that's what I mean when I talk about like shifting timelines, right? Is because it's like you can basically create the timeline as you're going. So I feel like I don't know, maybe I stretch this a little bit more, but this might sound crazy to some people, but I'll give an example of like kind of like how I like experience this in my day to day when I would watch Survivor and they're announcing the winner or announcing who got voted out, right? And I used to be like so nervous, and I would tell myself like, Dahmer, it already happened. Like it already happened. Don't stress about it. It already happened. But now like I kind of believe that you can shift timelines like at any point. So like I don't even necessarily technically like I don't really believe in like that linear timeline. Like it already happened. I can't change it because like you're in the present moment at all times and you're like manifesting your experience and your conscious reality at all times. So I know I'm going to sound crazy when I say this, but I'm literally like, well, like technically I could like timeline shift in that moment and change my experience, my reality that I'm perceiving and experiencing. And like it could because again, like it's like everything's the present moment, you know? It's all your conscious experience, right? Think about it. Like your whole life, it's just what you are consciously perceiving. It's just what you are consciously perceiving, right? Like you are essentially just consciousness. You would have no experience if not for your consciousness. And so it's like, there is no like technically past event that happened in your conscious reality. You know what I mean? It hasn't happened until you perceive that it's happened. And I'm not saying, okay, that like, it's not like you can't just change something in your conscious experience, right? Like that you have already perceived, right? So I'm not saying like you can literally like time shift and like make it so that something like that you didn't have an experience that you had, right? But it's like I, in my conscious experience, haven't observed like the winner of the season yet, right? So it's like something like that. I'm like in my reality, my timeline, right? Like this literally has not solidified in the 3D yet. Right? Like the particles haven't committed to a reality until you perceive it. So I may have lost some of you there, but I think, yeah, this is really where it kind of forks. And it's just like, honestly, like, how do you make sense of it? And like, what do you believe? I feel like this is very much just like a science versus faith conversation for me, which I find really interesting. And I'm really happy to have it because I feel like I've always felt really passionate about this. I think people get very defensive of their beliefs. And especially when it comes to this science versus faith, like people get so angry. Like people who are so science anti-faith get so up in arms about people who are so faith-based and like vice versa. And I'm just a really big proponent of like believe what you want to believe as long as, your beliefs aren't hurting anybody, right? Like if it helps you, like I don't really care what you believe. I don't care how you get there. Like I just want you to like, whatever you need to believe so that you can like be happy and like live life from a place of love. And again, like as long as your beliefs aren't hurting anyone else, not hurting you, then, you do you, boo. So that's why like I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place and I'm kind of nerding out with this question because I love to show like, yeah, you could believe this, you could believe this. And it's kind of all means to the same end from my perspective for the most part, right? It's kind of like what do you want to believe and what do you need to believe in order to have the best experience, right? And in order to perceive the best reality. So going back to this idea of like it hasn't happened and like you can like shift timelines and how you actually affect what you perceive, I believe that depending on where I'm at and like what my thoughts and emotions and energy are and, what kind of experiences and lessons I need at that point in time for my growth on my journey, like that will impact what I perceive and what I experience, if that makes sense. And that is kind of like the more spiritual part that kind of forks off from the science because, again, it's like I mentioned earlier, like you're a co-creator of your reality. So that does imply that there's some other force at play, right? Now, the way I kind of look at it is like the other force is still you, right? Like it's your higher self or your intuition or your soul. You could say universe, some people say God, some people just say source, whatever it is. Not like you, but like you, like it's like that, the universe is within you, like you are the universe, like because we all come from the same source energy. So like it's all different manifestations of you, the same thing, right? Like we're all connected, we're all one, like you and like your couch, I'm sorry, my couch, like me and my couch, we're created from the same source energy. We're all just parts of the same whole initially, right? It's like if you took like a giant piece of Play-Doh, I don't know why I picked Play-Doh, and you started pulling pieces off of the Play-Doh, right? Now you have 5 different pieces of Play-Doh, but they all came from the same chunk of Play-Doh. So they're all the same thing. So basically what I'm saying is that, the little piece of Play-Doh you pulled off of the big piece of Play-Doh, there's no quality missing from that piece of Play-Doh that is in the other piece of Play-Doh, right? Both pieces of Play-Doh have all the same qualities. because they came from the same source. And I feel like that is a very sciencey perspective because it's like Big Bang, like we all come from the same source energy. So that's how I look at it and how I view this concept of oneness, which is really big with manifestation too. And that's like quantum physics too, everything is energy and energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred, transmuted, and configured in different ways. So it's like, all right, we are literally all made of the same thing and we all come from the same thing, right? So we're all connected in that way. But it's like, all this to say, not everyone does necessarily believe that like we're all one or we're all connected or believes that everything happens for a reason or that everything is a lesson or that there's necessarily that much meaning behind it or that there is any type of like, bigger picture or power. I mean, the way that I kind of look at like that I view like this concept of like a higher power is it's just like a collective consciousness almost. Like it's just the collective energy. But, I don't even want to get too in the weeds about it because like, again, I feel like it doesn't even really matter. It's just like kind of all a means to an end and like how can you get to where you need to be? Like how do you fill that gap? And so it's like, I don't know. For me, I kind of was just like, if I could choose to believe that there's meaning or that it's meaningless, like I'm just going to choose to believe that there's meaning. And again, then that's going to be my reality, right? So it's like, what do I have to lose? At the same time, consciousness is something that is not fully explained. We literally don't fully know. Like we don't understand. And so it's kind of just like you have to fill in the gap with something, right? Like you have to fill it in somewhere. No one can deny, right? That like you get that gut feeling and you have those two voices in your head and like you are that consciousness, you are that observer of your thoughts and, nobody really knows if your consciousness is tied to your brain or not. We don't know where we came from, so it's like you kind of have to have that spiritual aspect. You have to have some element of like, how do you fill the gap with, of the unknown? And so that's where faith and spirituality come in pretty much versus the more scientific or science-based perspective. And when I use the word scientific or science-based, I really am just referring to like, the more tangible evidence-based perspective. So it's like, okay, we know that our role as the observer of our reality does affect the reality. Our literal act of perceiving affects what we're perceiving, right? The particles solidifying into one path and all that. Now, it's not necessarily scientifically proven that the state we're in affects, like, physically what we're perceiving, like changing what is in the 3D, right? It's proven that the fact that we perceive it affects it, but it's not proven that the state we're in and, like, the way we perceive it affects it, if that makes sense. If I lost you, don't worry about it. Because it's kind of like at the end of the day, does it really matter? Like, there's no difference, right? Like, if that's how you're perceiving it, that is what you're perceiving, It's like two ways of explaining the same thing, ultimately, like big picture, whether you're talking about psychology, cognitive bias, observer expectancy bias, all the things we talked about earlier with, the brain, or whether you look at it from this angle of vibration and frequency, where it's like everything is energy and every wave of energy has a vibrational frequency. And so the way I look at it, which I feel like it's scientifically supported, and like scientists might argue with me or skeptics might argue with me on this, but it's like, if you're vibrating at a certain frequency, then you're going to create manifestations that are vibrating at that frequency in your reality because you're like a tuning fork, like that's the energy you're emitting around you. So it's like where you think about a guitar, if you like vibrate an E string, right, it will create the sound of an E, right? Because the energy waves are vibrating at that frequency. So that's what I think about manifestation. It's like if you're vibrating at an E frequency, you're going to create the sound of an E note. If you're vibrating at an A frequency, you're going to create the sound of an A note. And that's, kind of how I meld the scientific and the spiritual of like, the idea that you create and attract the energy that you embody, right? Whatever frequency you're vibrating at energetically, you're going to literally create the manifestation of that frequency in your 3D physical reality. And that guitar analogy is really the best way that I can kind of explain that. And so that's how I look at it from a scientific and spiritual perspective. Also, going back to that idea of like we're all one and we're all connected, it's that idea of like everything you need is within you, everything that you desire is within you, right? Because if the entire universe, like you are connected to the entire universe because energy can't be created or destroyed. So essentially it's like everything you desire is within you energetically. And everything is energy. So it's like as long as you just have to find a way to access that energy within you. And then you have the thing energetically in your field. I'm basically just like talking about a bunch of different concepts and then explaining them in 5 different ways. So I hope this is making sense. This is like probably the most complicated question to answer because there's just so many directions I could go with it. But then the other piece of that too is like, again, you can even look at that through the psychological lens, right? Even if you're like, I explained that Play-Doh thing and you're like, no, because now it's 2 different pieces of Play-Doh or whatever. And you're like, I don't get it. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, the only reason why that belief even matters is like to remember that like, you have, like, you don't need anything outside of you to be happy, right? Because the whole idea with manifestation is like embody it within and then it will manifest externally. And the whole trick of it is, right? Even if you don't believe that'll happen, once you embody it within, you don't actually care about manifesting it in your physical 3D anymore because you're already feeling the way you want to feel, right? So it's the whole idea of like, again, your perception is reality. Whatever you're feeling and experiencing is like what you're literally going to be experiencing in that current moment. And that's your reality. And so it's like, well, if you're happy, if you feel safe and happy and loved and free and all the great things, you don't actually care if you have that other thing, the money, the jobs, the client, the partner, the whatever that you think you want to make you feel a certain way, because you can cultivate the feelings from within at any time, right? And that's that emotional energetic embodiment piece. And that's psychology, like hedonic adaptation, like shows that if you are trying to seek a feeling through an external thing, once you get it, you're just going to adjust, you're going to adapt, and then just seek again from the next thing, because you're always going to be seeking. If you're seeking outside of you, you're always going to be chasing. If you cultivate it within, then it's always with you. And then you don't even need it from outside of you, but then you're going to attract it because it's already there. Oh my God, I just put a handprint on my chest. I'm watching in the video. I got a little burn to it clearly. So yeah, I feel like I'm been like talking all over the place, but I hope that makes sense. And that's why it's like at the end of the day, I come back to always embodiment, energetic embodiment, whatever energy you are embodying. That is what you're going to create and that's what you're going to get. So it's like these 2 pieces of like the energetic embodiment and creation piece, and then the mind and perception reality piece. I mean, and then there's also like the placebo effect, right? Like, I mean, that is not nothing. People have literally healed through belief. Like physical changes have manifested from simply like defying logic, right? Like miracles happen and it's just this mind over matter thing. And it's basically like the evidence is there if you're willing to basically look for it and open your eyes to it, is how I look at it. So I feel like I'm just kind of like throwing out like that. Basically, I feel like there's all these different studies that support so many aspects and elements of this belief system. And some people might say that it's like, oh, well, like there you're kind of making a jump to connect all of that together. And that's where I feel like the jump is also that piece of kind of like just trust and faith of like, like, okay, we have all of this evidence, but there's absolutely, obviously, this huge piece of just actually trusting, like, okay, this is how it works. And a huge piece of this is being able to trust, right, without the logic and the evidence. The reason why I love to bring all of the scientific pieces in is, of course, like the question was about how do the science and spirituality meet? But also it's like, we still are functioning and living in these human brains. And so we are very based in logic. And the way that I really actually got into this, and I know a lot of other people have kind of gone on this journey, is like you actually kind of get into it by accident. Like you get into it by learning about the pieces that feel more logical. And then you kind of start taking steps and putting things into practice. And then you start to have experiences that then support everything. And that's how you actually start to build your trust. So it's like I actually came into my trust and my full belief and faith-based perspective and like my spirituality through this like more logical scientific entry point, if that makes sense. And so I feel like now I just don't even really think about like, scientific proof or not. I'm just like, literally anything is possible. Like I just essentially am at the point where I'm like, yes, I believe in miracles, like literally magic. Like it's literally just magic. And so I feel like basically you kind of like, you get to that point. You just don't all of a sudden jump to that point. But like now I definitely, like, I see how people who are, just getting into this stuff might be, like, questioning or, like, not fully understand and be like, "Oh, that's a little woo." And that's the other things too is, like, you start to really get really tapped into your intuition, and then it's like you kinda just have answers that are just coming from nowhere. You can't really tell people where they came from, and that's the whole thing, right? That's that just, like, faith and trust piece of just, like, just having that knowing and being able to trust in that knowing without understanding why or where it came from, right? And that's even like listening to your body, being able to like listen to your body and, make decisions again, like trusting your gut, following your intuition, whatever you want to call it, without being able to have that tangible proof, without being able to make logical sense of it is kind of like what this journey is all about. And, it's like even if you feel like you struggle with that trust piece, it's like, even if it doesn't resonate with you to like have trust in the universe, it's like, well, like, what can I have trust in? Like, can I have trust in myself, right? Or can I just have trust that everything's going to work out? Like, how can I look back and see how, things that have gone badly have always ended up ultimately like bringing a gift, right? Or like, so it's kind of just like, where can I start like on the smallest scale? Building trust in just the process and like, my journey or in myself and like, or just finding someone that I can count on. Yeah, I don't even know what I'm going on a tangent about trust. Long story short, overall, like all these principles, right? I feel like anyone can really get on board with. And it's like really like all I want people to believe is like I can shape my life and my experience. I guess ultimately, like I find this question really interesting to muse on and like get a better understanding of everything. But at the end of the day, the way I kind of look at it is like, what do you have to lose by, just believing it's for the best? And that's just kind of like a starting point is like, what do you have to lose? So it's always like, just start there. And once you start really seeing and experiencing your power in that way, I feel like you just start to like, just like go further and further down this path, coming back more and more to yourself, connecting to your intuition, and like everything starts to fall into place. And I also find, for anyone listening, I have no idea who's listening. I feel like I've been trying to like talk this to like, so that like the things will land with people kind of anywhere on the spectrum. Even if you are like me and you're very, very deep in this work and belief system already, hopefully this is helpful because I find that for me, the more I understand something, like, and the better I understand my own beliefs, the more confident I feel in them. And just having a well-rounded perspective can be really helpful, especially because, like, obviously a lot of these beliefs are not very mainstream. And so I feel like, just having a very thorough understanding and more perspective around it can help you feel more confident in, like, owning your spirituality and your beliefs too in general, because I know I've definitely gone through, my fair share of feeling like people think I'm crazy. So I hope this helped deepen your understanding and expand your perspective of manifestation and just life and what you believe, like even if you don't believe everything I said, like hopefully this was a helpful reflection for you to like reflect on your own beliefs and be like, what does actually resonate me and what doesn't? Like I always say, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And I mean, the question was just, I don't even know. I mean, I definitely answered the question. And then I think I answered like 7 other questions in the process. So, all right, great question. And we are 40 minutes in, and I feel like I absolutely ended up, like I said, using this question as kind of just a jumping off point for a whole entire conversation. So what do you say we end this episode here? I'm going to close it out and I'm going to do a part 2, probably a part 2 and 3, because I have a feeling I might need a whole episode for each individual question because I'm me. And these are great questions, but they bring up so much. Or maybe I can squeeze the other 2 into one episode, or maybe have a mini episode, depending how long it takes. Either way, I'm going to end this here just so we don't get too long, because I don't want to be talking over an hour. So I hope that you feel like you have a little bit of a better understanding of manifestation, or at least of my views on how the science meets the spirituality and manifestation, and a better understanding of your own beliefs and all of these concepts and, your relationship with science and faith. Feel free to send more questions my way. Again, I'm happy to always talk about this and even just like chat with you in DMs if you have specific questions or hop on a call. Also, just let you know your thoughts in general. This is a very complex topic, so I'd be really curious to know, like, where do you fall? Where do you land? And Did you take anything away from this, or what resonated with you, what didn't? And yeah, just let me know your thoughts. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, open-mindedness is a very, very important value to me. I like to say the only belief I will ever really try to argue is to be open-minded to all beliefs. And I love to hear different perspectives and new perspectives that can help expand my own. So with that said, thank you so much for listening. If you loved this episode, don't forget to spread the love. Let other people know you loved it. Send it to somebody who you think would find it interesting or valuable. And don't forget to rate and review. And thank you so much in advance for the support. Also, we are doing Hot Girl CEO Summer. It's happening, and it's essentially going to be like this huge manifestation accelerator, confidence booster, energy raiser, and really just like expansion. And the waitlist is open right now, so I'm going to be giving more details, but I know I've been kind of teasing it a lot. And obviously it was kind of like in this slump. So like for a minute, I wasn't even sure if I was still going to do it, but I'm definitely feeling a lot better now and ready and very excited. And it's essentially going to be a 2-week group. We're going to have daily trainings and practices. We're going to have live coaching, and it's just going to be, like really like a Hot Girl Summer launch pad. Lots of perspective on spirituality, lots of integration, exercises, embodiment practices. Like I said, live coaching and some other super secret, spicy, exciting bonuses. Again, it's a 2-week container. It's going to be insanely powerful and potent, basically to really just help with that embodiment piece we've been talking about, right? Be in that energy, soak up that energy, raise your own vibration, get deeper into this work, get some more personalized support from me, daily prompts, channel guidance, how to get more in tune with your intuition, how to clear your channel, clear the resistance for your manifestations, and just like get you feeling really fucking good about yourself. And I'm so excited, especially because I feel like I have just expanded so much and really, really deepened into this work and expanded my own expertise in all of this and just peeled like so many new layers these past few weeks. And I'm so fucking pumped to bring it all to you. So it's going to be epic. It is going to be geared towards entrepreneurs, business owners, creators, coaches, current or aspiring. But if you don't identify as one of those things, but you're still feeling interested, and you just want to learn more about manifestation and kind of the energy and the mindset, and really like kind of set yourself up energetically and really get in tune going into the summer, then DM me if you have any questions about if you'd be a good fit or not. Like I said, the waitlist is open right now. So if you join the waitlist by DMing me vibes or Hot Girl Summer, whatever the fuck, honestly, I don't care what you DM me. I don't have automation set up right now. Are you kidding? DM me just that you're interested or you want to learn more, and I can get you on the waitlist. And that way you can lock in the early bird price, which is $22. You guys, $22. That's like literally don't buy coffee for a week and you've already made up that money. I mean, the amount of abundance you're going to manifest from being in this 2-week container is crazy. So it's a no-brainer in my opinion. It's going to be so fucking fun and I'm so excited. Yeah, check out my page for more details. Send me a DM if you're curious. And yeah, more on that coming soon. Okay, thank you so much for listening. I love you. I'm going to go just continue to film the next part of this. So I will be talking to fake you, talking to the ether you, the energetic you, in a few minutes, but you will be hearing it from me next week. So don't forget to stop, take a deep breath, and smile. I love you. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you next week. Bye.